The Tuatha Dé Danann, the Golden Gods of Ireland. Part 1. The Cloud of Arrival. Imagine, if you can, a time before the map of Ireland was drawn by ink and parchment. A time when the grass sang under a different kind of footfall, and the very air hummed with a frequency we have long since forgotten. We have spoken of the spirits that linger in our shadows, and the heroes who bled for our soil. But today we go further back. We go to the beginning. We go to the people who were here when the world was still wet in the morning dew of creation. They were the Tuatha Dé Danann, the people of the Goddess Danu. They did not arrive on our shores like common men, dragging boats onto the sand. No. The old manuscripts, the Lawer Gabal Éireann, tell us they came from the north. Not the north of maps, but the north of spirit. They arrived in dark clouds, a mist so thick it blotted out the sun for 3 days and 3 nights. When the fog finally lifted, there was no sign of ships. There was only a host of beings standing on the hills of Connemara, radiant as starlight, dressed in fabrics that shimmered like the neck of a mallard. Who were they? Were they gods? Were they fallen angels? Or were they a civilization so advanced in the arts of magic and druidry that the primitive tribes of Ireland could only fall to their knees in wonder? Tonight, we trace their footsteps from the 4 secret cities of the north to the hollow hills where they still dwell today. This is the full, epic history of the golden gods of Ireland. Stay close to the fire. The mist is rising. Part 2. The 4 magical cities. Before they ever saw the green land of Ireland, the Tuatha Dé Danann spent generations in the north of the world. They lived in 4 great cities: Fallius, Gorius, Findius, and Murius. These were not cities of brick and mortar, but centers of celestial learning. In these halls they mastered the arts of poetry, smithing, healing, and the deep, earth-binding magic of druids. But they did not leave these cities empty-handed. They brought with them 4 treasures, the 4 hallows of Ireland. And it is said that as long as the objects remain on our soil, the spirit of Ireland can never be broken. From Fallius, they brought the Leafáil, the stone of destiny. It was a pillar of grey stone that would roar with the voice of a lion when a true king of Ireland set his feet upon it. From Gorius, they brought the spear of Lug. It was a weapon so bloodthirsty, it had to be kept in a vat of poppy juice to keep it from attacking its own master in the night. From Findius came the sword of Nuada. No one ever escaped it, and once unsheathed, it glowed with a light that blinded the unworthy. And finally, from Murius, they brought the cauldron of the Dagda. It was a vessel of infinite plenty. No company ever left it hungry, and it could heal the wounds of any soul who tasted its broth. Think on that for a moment. They didn't just bring weapons. They brought the foundations of a kingdom. Justice in the stone, victory in the spear, truth in the sword, and compassion in the cauldron. They were coming to Ireland not to raid, but to build a heaven on earth. But Ireland was not empty. It was held by the Firbolg, a rough, earthy people who saw the shining newcomers as invaders. The stage was set for the first great war of our history. Part 3. The First Battle of Moytura. The clash happened at Moytura, County Mayo. The Tuatha Dé Danann offered to share the island, but the Firbolg refused. They could not understand these beings who moved like light and spoke in riddles. The battle lasted for days. It was a spectacle of magic and iron. The druids of the Tuatha Dé called down rains of fire and turned the very grass into spears. But the Firbolg were brave and strong. In the heat of the combat, the king of the Tuatha Dé, Nuada, met the champion of the Firbolg. With one swing of a heavy mace, the king's arm was severed. The Tuatha Dé won the day, and the Firbolg were given the province of Connacht to call their own. But the victory felt hollow. According to their law, a king must be perfect, without blemish or scar. Nuada, having lost his arm, was forced to step down. In his place, they chose Bress. Bress was beautiful to look at, half Fomorian, half Tuatha Dé. But beauty, as we know, can be a mask for a rotting soul. Bress was a tyrant. He taxed the people until they starved. He silenced the poets. He forced the great gods of the Tuatha Dé, the Dogda and Ogma, to perform manual labour, digging trenches and carrying stones. He broke the sacred rule of hospitality. When a poet visited the hall, Bress gave him a dry crust of bread in a cold room. This was the first time a satire was ever spoken in Ireland. The poet cursed Bress, and for the first time the golden gods realized that even they could be brought low by a bad leader. They needed Nuada back. And it was then that Dian Cecht, the god of healing, performed a miracle. He fashioned a working arm out of solid silver for Nuada. Nuada became Nuada Argadlov, Nuada of the silver hand. The king returned and Bress was cast out. Part 4. Lug the Long Arm. But the danger was not over. Bress fled to his father's people, the Fomorians, the ancient, one-eyed, one-limbed giants who lived in the darkness of the sea. They gathered an army to take Ireland back. Just as the clouds of war gathered over the hill of Tara, a stranger arrived at the gate. He was young, radiant, and carried the weight of destiny. The guard at the gate told him, "No one enters Tara unless they possess a skill that no one else here has." Stranger said, "I am a carpenter." The guard replied, "We already have a carpenter." "I am a smith." "We have a smith." "I am a champion, a harper, a poet, a historian, a sorcerer, and a healer." To every claim, the guard said, "We already have one." Then the stranger smiled and asked, "Does your king have one man who can do all of these things at once?" The gates swung open. This was Lug Lawfada, Lug of the Long Arm. He was the master of all arts. Nuada saw in Lug the future of their people. He handed Lug the command of the army. At the Second Battle of Moytura, the fate of Ireland was decided. It was a war of monsters against gods. Nuada fell to the giant Baelor of the Evil Eye, a creature whose single eyelid required 4 men with iron hooks to lift, and whose gaze turned whole armies to stone. But Lug was ready. With a single perfectly aimed stone from his sling, he struck Baelor's eye through the back of his head. The giants were defeated, and the Fomorians were driven back into the dark depths of the Atlantic. Lug the Long Arm was crowned king, and for many years Ireland knew a peace so profound that the birds sang in 3-part harmony and the rivers ran with honey. Part 5. The Coming of the Milesians. But nothing gold can stay, not even for gods. A new people arrived from the south, from the lands of Spain. They were the Milesians, the sons of Mialishbáine. They were humans, They didn't have the high magic of the Tuatha Dé Danann, but they had iron, and they had a cold, relentless hunger for land. The Tuatha Dé tried to stop them with sorcery. They brewed a magical storm that scattered the Milesian ships, but the Milesian poet, Emergen, stood at the prow of his ship and spoke a poem so powerful it commanded the ocean to be still. He spoke to the spirit of Ireland herself. The Milesians landed. At the Battle of Tuatha, the Golden Gods were defeated. The three queens of the Tuatha Dé, Banba, Fodla, and Eru, approached the Milesian leaders. They asked that their names be remembered. Eru's wish was granted. Her name became the name of the island itself, Éire, Ireland. The Milesians would rule the surface, but the Tuatha Dé Danann were too ancient and too magical to truly die. The Dagda, the Great Father, gathered his people. He used his magic to divide the island into two parts, the world of the light and the world of the shadow. He led the Tuatha Dé Danann into the Siada, the hollow hills, the ancient burial mounds, and the secret places under the lakes. Part 6. The People of the Mounds. This is where the story becomes personal for us today. The Tuatha Dé Danann did not leave us. They simply went underneath. They became the Seanchaí, the people of the mounds. Over the centuries, the memory of the golden gods began to fade, and they became known in folklore as the fairies, or good people. But don't be fooled by the Victorian stories of tiny winged sprites. The Tuatha Dé Danann are tall, powerful, and dangerous. They are the reason an Irish farmer will build a road around a hawthorn tree rather than cut it down. They are the reason we leave a drop of milk on the doorstep. They are the reason we feel a strange shiver when we walk through an ancient stone circle. They are still here. They are the architects of the other world, a place where time moves differently, a place where a single night of dancing in a fairy mound can result in 100 years passing on the surface. There is a tragedy in this story. They were once the masters of the sun and the stars, and now they are the hidden ones. But in their retreat, they left us their soul. Our love for music, our obsession with poetry, our respect for the landscape, that is all the inheritance of the Tuatha Dé Danann. They taught us that there is a thin veil between the seen and unseen, and that if you listen closely enough to the wind and the reeds, you can still hear the echo of Nuada's silver hand clashing against a shield. Thank you for staying with me through this journey. This story is the heartbeat of our island. If you want to keep the old magic alive, please subscribe and share with these stories. Every time we speak their names, the veil between the worlds grows a little thinner. I've been your host, the Irish Narrator. May the Goddess Danu watch over your path, and may you always find your way home through the mist. Stay safe in the shadows.